So it's been a good month since we kind of gave everybody an update here, but got really busy and didn't bother with the video thing. Just kind of had enough going on. But the engine is back together. The last time you saw it was a short block. It's back in the car. It's got our big stuff fuel injection on it that we're learning about. We've got it fired. It's really rich. I think it's set up for alcohol. We can't get our computer to hitch to it, so we have to figure that out. Once we get that figured out, we can get a tune in it that'll run. And I'm not sure what it's going to end up running on, alcohol, E85, E98, gas, I don't know yet. We're going to have to kind of wait and see how she runs. But we're starting to get things plumbed. The headers and everything are back from ceramic coat. Ty built the headers and the exhaust pipes. These will go up and through the hood when it's done. And built the intake. And I got the wiring in it. I got the computer in it. Well, he's been putting everything else together. And the fuel system had to be all changed out. It's the gear-driven fuel pump now. And yeah, it's coming together. We're firing the computer off from the crank trigger. And but then the rest of it will be run off the distributor, the same as ever. And well, the crank trigger does fire the computer, which sends a signal to the box. So I guess a lot of it is going to be off the crank trigger. But not 100% sure on how that all works yet. But we still got our MSD grid, so the MSD grid's still going to be running the ignition. And then we have to time our sequential fuel injection off of this 50 degrees ahead of where the ignition reads. So I'm assuming it makes a correction for it, but I'm still learning about the system. We'll fill you more in on that later. And then I'm gonna have Ty tell you a little bit about the heads and stuff, just because everything in here is either something we built or something we got used, just so we can have an affordable race car, and not, we just can't afford all the high dollar stuff. I'd have a brand new self-tuning system if we could, and not be messing with trying to make tune programs and everything else. So I'll tell you about the heads and everything else in the engine that you didn't get to see.
Exactly. So basically what we're dealing with is we have our bottom end's a 421 cube small block. So that's a 3875 stroke, 4165 bore. Basically it's an old block like you guys heard about before. Short block, or well, the rotating assemblies all off Facebook Marketplace. And then these heads were spec heads for a dirt class. You can still see there is markings for the spec class and the Brodick stuff on them and everything. So basically, we took those heads. They were already illegal. They were worked for
and
the
they
class.
had that crap beat out of them.
Yeah,
I mean,
and
that
they
guy,
were.
That guy wouldn't buy a fuel pump, and he'd break those 4-center pistons almost monthly, and running it too lean. And I mean, the last time it ate itself and broke rods, everything else. Those heads were hammered, but we welded them up and put them back to work.
Right, so the heads got all welded up, everything redone, a bunch of seats redone, a bunch of welding, surfacing, stuff like that. So basically now they're angle milled a whole bunch, and I went ahead and ported those a whole lot.
When you ported them, you had to weld on them more.
Well, yeah, exactly. Weld on them so they could clear, well, so you could keep air in the ports so it didn't go into the oil system. So then basically after that we had to custom make an intake. Well, our first iteration was basically this bottom half of this intake, and then we had an adapter plate to put 2 Hollies on top of it. So that was our first iteration. And then we had to go ahead, and now we've built this custom top plate. We're using like a Wilson Manifolds throttle body, and then I custom made this top plate all by hand. So basically now it's the same intake per se as with our carburetors, but we welded some welded some fuel bunks in it, I should say. So basically now we got a fully fuel injected unit. So that's where we're at on that. And then we had to custom make all our fuel rails and everything. And then all of our fuel system stuff.
You got the fuel rail making on the video. So.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys will see the fuel rail making process. And then everything changes. This is a return style system. So the fuel regulator is mounted up there on the dash.
Still have to finish mounting everything. We've got a bunch of little stuff.
Stuff is mock fit right now, to say the least.
Yeah.
But and then we were starting on our airlines and stuff for all our reference lines for our wastegates and for our
fuel pressure
and all that stuff. So that's kind of where we're at. All the intake tube stuff is done and ready to go. It just needs to be put on and have the lines hooked up to it. So no, we're pretty close. We need a couple little things. I still have to make the bracket for the alternator and stuff like that. So we got a couple little jobs to do, but we're probably 90% there. So that's cool. So yeah, I think you guys can see more of this next time.
Next update.
That's right. Perfect. There ain't nothing too important under this. If there is, somebody might be real disappointed. Please note they're really beautiful billet Chevy, like bow tie hood pin boss units, but
Custom fabricated.
those are custom fabricated CNC units, and then
More CNC stuff.
yeah.
The old company logo.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
It's finally coming together.